Hello everyone, this is Jon Gundry here with ThroBak Electronics. I'm in the winding area of our company, and I'm going to do a maintenance repair on one of the machines that we use to make our P.A.F reproduction pickups. I want to walk you through that because I think it'll probably show why it's important for what we make to use the same vintage machines that Gibson used to wind P.A.F pickups in the 50s, and patent number stickers in the 60s, and also even T-tops. So let me show you around here real quick. We've got, right now Paul is winding pickups on the Slug 101 winding machine. Hopefully this isn't so noisy that you can't understand it. This is the other Meteor machine that we have. This one's working properly, but I will show you what needs to be done in order to get the other machine working properly and why that matters to a P.A.F pickup, or any pickup for that matter. Okay, so I'll do my best here to explain what's going on. Okay, so this Meteor machine is showing the symptoms of what is called a worn friction disc. Why does this matter, you may ask? Well, the friction disc is a small little wheel inside the machine. I have a replacement here. But this small little wheel inside the machine transfers power from the motor to the traverse. And if anything goes wrong with this wheel, that transfer of power changes the turn per layer of the pickup. And that change in turn per layer of the pickup has an effect on the tone. The turn per layer, or wire traverse, wire pitch of the magnet wire, is one of the parameters that pickup makers use to affect the sound of a pickup. So if this little item goes out of round, the diameter gets smaller, anything happens with it that is out of spec through just normal wear, it will change the turn per layer. And I can see that. One of the questions I often get asked from customers and potential customers is, well, why do the machines matter? And why would this an item like this matter in the sound of a pickup? And why would let's say the Meteor machine differ from one of our Sona 102 machines, or the Slug 101 machine winder that Paul's using? Well, one of those details is that variation in turn per layer, which is peculiar to each machine, and this one in particular relies upon one item that can wear out. When I get a vintage pickup in that has a turn per layer range that would be in the range of what happens when this wears out, I know immediately it's a Meteor machine. And even before that, I know it's a Meteor machine. If this isn't worn, because this machine does not use gears, preset gears, or a pulley to transfer the power for the turn per layer. It uses a system unique to this machine, and I'll try to explain it here. The Meteor machine has a motor. Well, of course, they all have a motor that transfers power via a belt to a plate that is inside the machine. I've taken the coverings off the machine, and let me see if I can get a closer shot of this. You have a plate here. This spins when you switch the machine on and the motor spins. And then you have a plate here that is is spring loaded. And the power from this plate, when it spins, is transferred to this second plate. And this second plate powers the mechanism for the wire guides, the wire traverse. And that's this mechanism here. The way that power is transferred is via this small disc that is wedged between the two plates here. I'll try to point to it. Maybe you can see it. It's that sort of orangey red disc right there. That disc transfers power from the motor plate to the traverse plate. And where these two plates are offset, and where that disc sits adjusts the speed of this plate, and in turn adjusts the turn per layer that the machine is operating at. That's unique to this machine, but it's all dependent upon this disc here working properly. I'll show you right now how I know that that disc is worn. All right, so we're looking at the front of the machine here, and I'll try to explain this. The position of that friction disc is adjusted by turning this wheel. It says turn only while machine is running. If you turn this knob when the machine is not running, it will prematurely wear the friction disc inside, make flat spots on it, and generally mess up the operation of it in a very small way that manifests itself as a difference in turn per layer. This machine doesn't require any changes of gears in order to change the turn per layer. It instead has a needle that indicates the position of the friction disc, and that needle turns with changes location with the turn of this knob. Currently I have this set up to do our machine wound fender pickups. So I don't have it set for what Gibson would be using this for. Fender also used these machines in the 60s. But that fact that this disc is responsible for the traverse and the calibration of this needle makes any wear with this affect the turn per layer. One other detail of this is if I set this needle to 42 gauge wire, it will be off of what the standard turn per layer should be. If you were to use a geared machine, it will be off by 35%, 30 to 35%, depending upon the wear of this. That is peculiar to this machine, and this is different than all of the other machines that Gibson used in the 50s for vintage P.A.F. pickups. So that's one other indicator I know if I'm doing a repair that this is the machine Gibson used for that particular pickup. And again, we use this info to inform what we make here. Okay, I'm going to switch the machine on, and maybe you'll see visually what's going on with the friction disc when it's worn and what makes me know that this has to be repaired. So let me turn that on. Okay. Let's see if I can get a picture of this. All right, if you see the friction disc there, the mounting bracket for it, it is wobbling. And that means that that wheel is out of round and the friction disc is out of round and needs to be replaced. And it's not properly transferring the plate from the drive plate to the traverse plate. And again, that is creating a variation in the turn per layer that I've identified in what I wound on this, so it was a bit of a clue to know that something was up with the machine. All right, I will switch this off, and I will proceed to replace that. I don't know how exciting this is going to be, but hopefully I'm getting across the idea that these are the kind of weird little details that in an industrial setting don't matter, really. Like if I use this as an example, if I were making solenoids for like car starter switches, this would not really be a factor of too much importance. But with a guitar pickup, this sort of variation is one of the key variables that we can change to affect the sound of the pickup. And since we're making a reproduction, using the correct machines becomes very important. And this is an indicator of why this particular machine is important to have. I'm going to show you two here. The friction disc again. This disc here is the last one of these I have. Meteor does not make these anymore. I had to purchase a supply of these from Poland about 10 years ago. That was the last place that had these. So when this one was worn out, I'll have to find a machine shop to machine this rubber disc here that's in between it. And I actually do have, they sent along one replacement rubber disc, so I think I should be able to get one more go at it. These last a while, but the reason I show this is that this is, I think a lot of people that still use these machines, they might find a solution to operation of this that gets rid of that disc or replaces it with one that is not the same spec as the old ones. But this little item is important for the machine, and I'm going to replace it, and I'll show the results when I'm done. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to adjust this knob with the machine off to reposition the little carriage for the friction disc. At this point, the friction disc is shot, so it does not matter if I have the machine running when I do this, but I have to get it clear of the plates so that I can get in there to, it's kind of tight quarters to get the disc removed. So I'll do that right now. All right, I'm just slowly but surely going to move this as far back as I can so that I can replace the little wheel, the friction disc, with the new one. And also when I do that, I'm going to have to clean off and slightly resurface these plates because the residue from that deteriorated rubber gets all over those plates. And again, just that will affect the transfer of power between the two plates. That's really why this is important, is that transfer of power. If it slips, you're getting a variation in the turn per layer. Also, you may ask, well, if this is a feature of a vintage one, why don't you just let it be? Why don't you let the worn disc be? Well, I could, but that's not, I can't control that, because once this gets worn to a certain point, all right, I've bottomed out as far as how far that'll go. Once this is worn to the point where it's affecting the turn per layer, it's not controllable as far as making a repeatable pickup. But since this machine does allow easy changing of the turn per layer via this knob on the front of the machine, when the friction disc is in proper spec, I can duplicate that variation and record it with the calibration needle, which is what we do for the various models that we make with the Meteor machine. Just take some little tiny wrenches to get in here. Okay, I've got them out. I've got the old one out. I don't know if this will focus on this, but this is the old friction disc. And it's got chunks out of it. And maybe you can't see this, but I'll put it up against the, in case you can, I'll put it against the new one. The old one's considerably smaller diameter. Actually, maybe I'll measure that. I'll just give you an idea of what the difference. Okay. Let's see what the difference is in millimeters between the two. The new one says 32.8. The other one's 30.29. The old one. It's 29.88, so it's 30.25. So it's the worn one's 2 to 3 millimeters smaller. So since it transfers the power, that shrinking diameter is a factor in what the traverse is. And again, if I see a certain range of traverse, turn per layer with a vintage pickup, it's just a dead giveaway as to which machine it is, and this one in particular has that variability because of the whole friction disc variable. It wearing, it going out of round, it depositing bits of rubber on the plate. Anyway, so again, to repeat, this is why the machines matter. Okay, I'm going to put the new one in there, and I got to clean off the plates first, but once that is done, I'll put the new one in, and then I will show how smoothly it runs with the new friction disc in place. And let me get to that. Okay, I have got the plates cleaned and got the evidence on my hands there. And I tell people this, the reason this seems easy is because I had a dad who liked to restore, well, he's still alive, but he liked to restore Studebakers. And I had a 64 Studebaker Daytona in high school that I fixed up, quote unquote. And this seems like a piece of cake compared to that, but I think this sort of thing might seem daunting or troubleshooting it if you didn't have someone to walk you through it, but it's definitely figure outable if you have some mechanical experience. So, okay, I'm gonna oil stuff up, put the bolt, the new friction disc back in there. Here, I'll show you real quick the inside of this. All right, so we've got this plate, which is spring-loaded, and then the drive plate. They're all cleaned off and have any sort of residue from the previous worn friction disc gone. And we'll get the new one on there. See if I can get a closer shot of the worn friction disc right there. You can see there's a chunk out of it right there. And the new one going in there. New one is actually made with compression pins, so this center rubber portion can be replaced. I have one left of those center rubber portions, but you can't get these anymore. This came from Poland, and that place is no longer around. So a lot of, I think a lot of people that still use these machines, they override this mechanism entirely and just drive, have a direct drive to accomplish this with the traverse separate from the mandrel drive. But again, we're making a vintage reproduction, so it's important to keep the details of the vintage machine mechanically intact. So this is why we're fixing it. Let me get back to that. Well, the new friction disc is back in there. I'm going to give it a little bit of precision oiling, and then I'll run the machine and you will get to see the results. All right, we're back with the new friction disc installed, and I will show that. Let me turn the camera around. Oh, wrong way. All right, there it is. I'm going to switch machine on, and we will see a non-wobbly transfer of power with a correct diameter friction disc. Now, traverse is way too short here, so I will, while the machine's running, I will get it back to where it needs to go. So we're moving the carriage there for the friction disc, and affects the speed of the whole entire machine. I will get the needle back where it needs to be, and for what we're making, it'll be set. Now, by the way, that clicking sound is a traverse speed, so just this repositioning of the disc is slowing down the traverse speed. And I'm close to where it needs to be, and right there. So let me shut it off. But we are done. I'm going to put it all back together. No more clunking noises or wobbly mechanisms. This should be set to go for a good long while, making ThroBak reproduction pickups. One last thing I think I'll show before I put the covers back on is I'm just going to explain the unique part of the traverse with this machine. I'll turn it on. This is not the traverse in the other machines used for P.A.Fs. The change in direction is entirely mechanically driven with cams and rods and sort of a purely mechanical connection. This obviously has a mechanical connection, but it changes direction electronically. Which makes another thing that makes this machine unique. So the power is transferred from this drive plate to the traverse plate. The traverse plate drives a gear that has a looped band that is also anchored at this side that is in constant motion in a loop. The traverse carriage is right here, and that is connected to that band via two different pairs of electromagnets that grab onto the two sides of this looped band, depending upon which electromagnet pair is switched on. And that establishes the left and right traverse directions. Those bands change direction with a mechanical or electronic switch that is triggered right here with a stop for both direction, and that switches the travel of both of the traverse by turning either this pair of electromagnets on or this pair of electromagnets on, and not both are never on at the same time. So it does it in a very elegant electronic way that is more precise in terms of that change in direction than any of the purely mechanical machine traverses. So it's another one of these details that is baked into each of these individual machines that, in the context of a guitar pickup, has an effect, a little bit of an effect, and these things stack up as the assembly is put together and all of the different components of a P.A.F style pickup. So, all right, I'll put it all back together and then I will wind it up. Okay, that's it. The Meteor 301 481A variant, I think I got that number right, is back up and operational perfectly with a new friction disc. I hope that was mildly entertaining and got across the idea as to why it's important to us when we make a repro to use the old machines, and how those old machines vary in ways that affect the final outcome and sound of a vintage reproduction pickup. So anyway, thank you for watching, and once again, thanks for letting ThroBak be part of your search for great guitar tone.